Good morning. On November 3rd, 2019, we lost our republic. We lost our freedom because the Democrats stole an election. We lost our economy, and many of us lost our jobs. Now it's time to fight back. I'm Anatoly Anatolisova, and this is Patriots Must Rise. Welcome. Anybody that lived through 2019, 2020, the COVID shutdowns, the stupidity of the left and how they handled COVID feels that they would have never actually voted for a Democrat. Well, we all believe that Trump won the election of 2020. So, with the Democrats knowing that the bulk of America and even the bulk of the world know that the Democrats cheated in 2020, they are trying to make an example of Donald Trump. And this is how they're doing it.
They carefully coordinated these four indictments to make sure that Trump and all of his associates spend the entire year in court unable to campaign.
By now, we should have no question that the deep state is so corrupt. We should have no question that they would be willing to kill for their agenda, and that money is everything and the only thing that they are concerned about. So Joe Biden stealing an election shouldn't be a surprise. But what we're about to show you about Hawaii, this should turn your stomach. But before that, Stu Peterson has some really good ideas about how to fight back against this persecution of Republicans in America. That's the trial of Trump. The indictments are not accidental. They're trying to intimidate us. So we seriously need to think a little bit more about how to fight back.
And we need to be fighting the coup right now.
Amen.
You do not meet this threat by treating it as normal politics. No, there is no political solution. You have to meet it by treating it as the extra-legal coup d'etat that it is. And if your elected officials respond to this by asking for more money and your vote in 2024, they are defrauding you.
Exactly. Stu gives some really good ideas on how to combat this attack on the Republic. And I think we might want to implement them if we ever get the chance. Please pay attention to what he's saying, because it's important.
Defund the Fulton County DA's office and remove Fani Willis from power immediately. And if a judge tries to stop you, ignore them. Ignore them.
Yeah, because we have no government.
In every other red state, here's what you demand. Cease all cooperation with the federal government on anything.
Exactly.
Immediately. No cooperation on any law enforcement. No providing any requested federal data. Treat the Biden regime as, at best, an occupying power in a conquered land. Be defiant.
That's all we can do.
And at the federal level, you demand the House must immediately stop all funding. I don't care how necessary it is. If it was necessary, the Biden regime shouldn't have declared war on the Republic. No more money for the DOJ, no more money for the Defense Department, absolutely not a single cent more for those corrupt scam artists in Ukraine. I mean a total blockade immediately.
Exactly.
Not a single red cent for these parasites in Washington until these charges are dropped. The people responsible for them at the DOJ are removed from power, and we have serious reforms to make sure that this never happens again, and American elections have...
Stu gives some really good ideas on how to combat this attack on the Republic. And I think we might want to implement them if we ever get the chance. Please pay attention to what he's saying, because it's important.
Be ready for what the deep state has planned, because they indisputably will have something planned for what's next. It may very well involve mass arrests of Republicans, mass arrests of dissidents or Trump supporters. Remember, these people are looking for any excuse to overreach. Don't give it to them. Force them to be the ones who attack first, but be ready for it. And be ready to defend yourself and your family by any means necessary. And this is important.
They come through the door, we kill them. That's all there is to it.
Always remember, the great heroes of America had to take huge personal risks for the liberty of this country. If you aren't willing to risk something too, then why would you?
This is the clip that I was talking about where Stu Peterson starts talking about how odd these Hawaiian fires actually are. I honestly believe that our current administration murdered these people.
Until last week, the deadliest fire in United States history was the Peshtigo fire more than 150 years ago. Well, now it's possible that we may have a new leader. The confirmed death toll in Maui from last week's fire has now surpassed 100 deaths, but hundreds are still missing. I mean, this could easily turn out to be a 9/11 level event out of nowhere. And what is Joe Biden's response? No comment.
Any comments on the Biden death toll in Maui?
Hold on. This fire in Maui is actually more of a symbol of the corruption of the Biden regime. We'll get into that later. But what Stu has to say and the guest that he's about to bring on is pointing into something much more scarier. The federal government is murdering Americans, and they're not using coronavirus anymore.
Will you come talk about the Hawaii response, Mr. President?
Nothing there. Nothing there. But why would he care, actually? I mean, the people of Maui don't give his son millions of dollars to spend on drugs and hookers. The people of Maui weren't oligarchs propping up the Biden family lifestyle. They weren't setting aside 10% of their incomes for the big guy, so of course Biden doesn't give a. Chad Prather hosts the Chad Prather Show on Blaze TV. He made one of the better comments about Joe Biden's indifferent and probably the most accurate. Maybe Biden has no comment because he was just exhausted from signing so many checks to Ukraine. Chad joins us now. Chad, thank you so much for coming back. It's always a pleasure talking to you. So, I mean, first of all, no comment doesn't surprise us. But what is really the underlying most scary part of what you're seeing unfold on the island of Maui?
Well, first of all, Joe Biden has no comment because Joe Biden has no brain. Nobody told him what to say. He doesn't have any note cards. He doesn't have a teleprompter. There's no earpiece in his ear to give him the words that he needs. And he doesn't care, and that's the scary part. You know, Stu, I don't think it comes as any surprise to you or your audience to hear me say that I don't trust anything that has our government's fingerprints on it at this point, especially under this administration. When you look at this Maui fire, you know, you hate to take a tragedy. I mean, they don't believe that we think this way, but we really do hate to take a tragedy and this massive loss of life and property and to turn it into some kind of conspiracy. But, you know, this is the world we're living in. When you have a news media that tells you just enough information to whet your appetite and hopefully to kind of placate you into not asking questions, but they leave this massive vacuum. Well, there's no such thing as a vacuum in nature. Something rushes to fill it. And what rushes to fill it these days is our questions. So we're questioning what happened. How did the fire start? Why did this fire start? What's going on now? Why this weird response from the Biden administration? Why no comment? At bare minimum, if you're the leader of the free world and you're the president of the United States, you should at least be able to stand in front of the news media time and time again when asked and at least offer condolences in the face of this tragedy. He doesn't have the human decency to do that. So when I look at what's happening in Maui, what are we going to find? What's going to be uncovered? It might take us 10, 15, 20 years to really uncover the truth of what's happening. But you're right. I think this could be a 9/11 not only level tragedy, but a 9/11 level conspiracy.
Cover up, yes.
And it's scary to think about that.
Yeah. There's going to be Maui truthers in 10 or 15 years that are discredited by the mainstream press and these left-wing rags, the communist rags, really. So when you look at the fire and you look at what's happening and you see, you know, flames sweeping across pavement, like the cement is on fire. You see the ocean is on fire. You see that houses are burning down, but the trees around them are staying intact. And then you compare that to the effects of a direct energy weapon. I mean, of course, we have questions. How did this start? Who started this? And it was intentionally started. Don't give me this wildfire crap. I mean, this isn't a desert. There are no, wildfire conditions. There's no drought happening in Maui. So all of the things that they try to gaslight us in the media with and then call us intentional names, like right out in advance, preemptively striking anybody who might want to ask questions, is pretty synonymous with what they're doing with the election. You ask questions about the election. If you ask questions about the moon landing, if you ask questions about, what's happening in Ukraine with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, what's happening in Ukraine, period, right now? Why are we sending hundreds of billions of dollars there? Who's fighting there? Why are there Americans there? Any of these questions, immediately they get discredited. Why?
Stu, I think the most dangerous thing you can do in 21st century America is ask questions. We should be able to do that. We should be able to voice our opinions. We should be able to have a beer and debate these things, discuss these things with the what ifs and what could have been. There's an element of fun to that, historically speaking, to be able to debate these things and say, that's interesting. I haven't thought about it from that angle. These days, that kind of thing can literally get you arrested. It can get you banned, deplatformed, demonetized. You can lose your job, lose your career.
Lose your bank account, lose your ability to travel, lose your ability to stay in a VRBO, lose your ability to call a Uber.
Yeah. And so when I look at this and I go, well, hurricanes, they don't drop fire from the sky. Hawaii's been through a lot in its history. It is an island state that's out in the middle of the Pacific. They're accustomed to dealing with harsh conditions from time to time. The thing is an outcropping from a volcano. They understand wild conditions. Here's a situation that is awfully suspect. Why are none of the elite's property, whether it's Oprah Winfrey, Jeff Bezos, any of these people that you can list off, their property is virtually untouched. I mean, not virtually, completely untouched.
Yeah, that's in purpose.
But yet these properties that have been contested for so long, where indigenous people and citizens have tried to hold on to these properties while the big conglomerates have tried to come in and take over, those properties are destroyed. It doesn't make sense. It certainly raises a question in my mind that I think should be asked when you say what's going on. That's why I said earlier, it may take us 10 years, 15 years. When suddenly Maui starts to look like South Beach, Miami, we're going to know exactly what happened.
And when the people of South Beach, Miami are suddenly acquiring property in Maui and they're buying it up dirt cheap. I want to read something to you here. This is from Matt. XRP Patriot. I don't know what this is. Here's what he said. The amount of fatalities is expected to be more than 500, but less than 1,000. Many of the fatalities will be children who were at home because they canceled school. Parents worked and were not there to evacuate children. Kids had no idea that they needed to leave, and by the time they noticed their homes were burning down, they're dead. Okay. And now it says this. The government is worried about how we will react when we learn that the fire department left the fire earlier in the day and claimed that it was 100% contained, knowing that the winds were expected to be 70 miles per hour by the afternoon. This is against all fire control protocols. The fire department should not have left the original fire unattended. They're scared that the public calls for accountability will be more than they can control and protests and riots will occur. They plan to lock down Lahaina for several months. It will take months to clean up the hazardous environmental contamination. They won't have enough housing for all of the displaced. There were 2,000 unaccounted for this morning. They have a list where they're trying to keep track. They found 700 today, but there are still 1,300 missing. This is the most important part here. I'm not trying to make waves or stir up problems, but I was so angry and sad when I found out how many children were dead and that I knew that I had to post this and let everyone know what I've learned. It's time for officials to stand up, tell the truth, and face the music. They failed. Our government is full of incompetent nepotism. The fire chief is the son of the former fire chief. We need to hold officials accountable for the mistakes that they made. Please don't hate the messenger. I'm just relaying what I learned today. They're worried that they're going to find out. Here, the emergency sirens were not activated. Hurricane sirens. And loss of life could have been kept down by better emergency management, which utterly failed. Did it utterly fail, or was this a blatant attack on innocent Hawaiians?
No. What were you saying? About Maui.
Since at least 2016, there have been protests by the natives and local people of Hawaii about a telescope they want to build on Mauna Kea. They have actually gathered together. They have blocked the access road to keep them from going up there. There were videos, at least either last summer or a couple of summers before, of them arresting elderly native people that are in wheelchairs, by federal agents and the government, the governor of Hawaii or whatever. They actually shamed them for their reaction because they're trying to stop this multi-million-dollar thing from being built on what they consider a sacred mountain. And no respect for it, nothing like that. They haven't been able to stop these people from their protests, and their protests have been working.
Interesting.
And now a bunch of native people on Maui and that kind of stuff have lost their homes and their lives to something mysterious that the government won't talk about.
Yeah.
Don't want to acknowledge. So that they haven't been able to stop these people.
And a so-called wildfire is skipping homes.
From their... Because they couldn't stop them because these people's argument were being heard by other people. They physically were putting themselves in the way. They now have attacked them at their homes and where they live and given them a bigger problem to worry about than that. And I see a connection because if this is all native people and that kind of stuff in Hawaii, Maui, for goodness sakes, it's not even one with an active volcano. So you can't blame it on the volcan activity.
Yeah, it's amazing how stupid the press seems to think people are.
So I see a connection. They couldn't stop these people from stopping the building of the telescope one way. So now they've given them nothing else to be worried about rather than...
We'll see.
There's more to this. That's just...
Definitely. There always is. They're fucking Democrats.
But I mean, there's at least one celebrity that was very vocal about it. He went up there and actually talked about the protests the Native peoples were doing against it. And wow, I actually see a connection here. I can see them. Wow.
Yeah, I think we all do.
I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. This is a spiritual war. as much as it is a financial and possibly soon a physical war against evil in America and against those that want to enslave the world. Reagan said that our America, is the beacon on a hill, the inspiration for democracy, the last sanctuary for freedom. If we lose that, there is no place for anyone to go to actually seek freedom. We can't let go of that. So we can't let the deep state win. We can't let the globalists win. I do everything that I can to educate and show people how to make a living without government aid. I am blind. I am disabled. I do not seek government help. But I have to make a living somehow, and this is how I do it. Hopefully, if you enjoy this content and you have the means, please donate. The link is in the description. But until then, like, subscribe. But most of all, live free, die well, and love your neighbor as Christ has loved you. I am Anatoly Anatolisova, and this is Patriots Must Rise.